Welcome to After the Buzzers Sports Podcast, the podcast that's all about sports and the African American athlete. Let's go.
Hey guys, we are back. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a pretty awesome show today. You have myself, Raquel Richardson Thomas, Mr. Basketball, Marvin Orange, and Lee Jones. And we're going to have a little bit of fun today, and we're going to end it with a whole lot of fun. But first up, we're going to talk about Stephen A. Smith. He disagrees with Kyrie Irving as to why NBA players should sit out. He feels that social justice is not a reason not to go to work. And that's Stephen A. Smith's thought process behind it. We've already talked about this, but we're going to talk about it again today. NBA Player Coalition, led by Kyrie and Bradley, wants a plan from the NBA in reference to the Black community. We're going to ask you guys your thoughts on that, and we're going to discuss what we think in reference to that. And then we have Chuba from Oklahoma State. 2,000 yards, running back, refuses to do any further workouts. We're going to talk about that and the why. I can't wait to hear Lee's feedback on this guy. And then we're going to move into Ohio State. Ohio State, and this is touchy for me, and I think you guys probably knew that, but Ohio State is asking players to sign a risk waiver to protect the university from liabilities. Perhaps they shouldn't play football, but that's okay. Why haven't college presidents, athletic directors, NCAA not been more vocal about Black Lives Matters? Why haven't they been more vocal? Roger Goodell, this is funny to me. He encourages and will support the NFL for signing Colin Kaepernick. Now he's on board. We're going to talk about that and his change of heart and his amazing statement all of a sudden. We're going to talk about the Saints. Winston recently said he is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play, and it's not over for him.
What's the chuckle about? I don't get it, but okay. Okay.
A successful starter in the NFL. And then we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about our top 5 running backs in the NFL of all time, top 5 all-time running backs in the NFL. And we're going to end with my favorite sport, right, basketball. But we're going to talk about women's basketball. We're going to talk about the top 5 women to ever play the game. So we're going to get going. Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith disagrees with Kyrie Irving to push for the NBA players to return for the remainder of the season, saying that they should sit out for social justice. We talked about this almost to nauseum, but I think now we have some of the commentators speaking in reference to their thoughts and their feelings. Stephen A. Smith is kind of along with Lee in regards to this topic. And I see his point, right? For many Americans, we have to go to work despite what's going on in the country, right? You and I, we have to go to work. But for the NBA players, because of their platform, because of the power they hold, because of the economic status that they can change, is the primary reason I'm in agreement with them not playing. And trust me, there's no one that wants to see LeBron win another championship more than me. And I think he will win it this year. But because of what we're going through in our country, I'll stand with the same opinion I had the last 2 weeks, the last 2 shows, that, yeah, the NBA, I would like to see the players stand and affect the dollars of their owners to get them to do more for our communities and to help us fight what's going on in our country. Lee, what are your thoughts?
Well, for me, first of all, I don't know about the comparison with me and Stephen A. Smith. A lot of things he says I just totally don't agree with. And I love to debate him on it sometimes. Hopefully I get that opportunity within my lifetime. But he said that, the normal people have to go to work and they cannot just say, we're fighting social justice and not go to work. Well, normal people and NBA players are not the same. We know that the sports industry is a totally different animal than any other industry or any other job that's out there. So to compare them to the regular person going to work, I don't think that's a good comparison whatsoever. So I throw that out first and foremost. Also, I think the players have a right to say, hold off. Wait a minute. I want to know more about the COVID and testing. I want to know more about what you as owners are going to do to affect positive Black lives and the Black Lives Matters movement, and have them develop a plan, like we're going to talk about in our second topic, of improving the Black community. Quit stroking checks. You know what I'm saying? So I disagree with what Stephen A. said, because I think you don't lump professional athletes. We know that industry is totally different animal. It's the number one thing that everybody talks about. Sports is number king in this country. So to compare that to the average citizen going to Burger King or going to McDonald's or going to a college to work, there's no comparison. So for me, the statement doesn't carry weight. And I think he was just, sort of rambling off at the mouth when you throw out there that the average person can't go to work for dealing with social justice, because these are not the average people that we're talking about. So that's my whole take on his argument. Stephen A. sometimes, to me, cool brother, I support him, but a bit mouthy. He just rambles too much for me. Quit comparing stuff that we all know is not comparable. I would say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, Lee. Before you jump in, Marv, Lee, you were very much so for players playing, despite what's going on in Black America, despite what's going on in our country. So, in essence, you and Stephen A. Smith are in agreement. You want the players to play, despite what's going on in the country. So,
I do.
You may not like him or agree with him all the time, but for this particular subject, brother, you agree.
Yeah. I agree that I want the players to play. However, I do think they should use their platform, and before they start back to playing, pump the brakes and get what they feel they can get out of the situation. Y'all beat my brother Kyrie down on Saturday. Well, I think he's doing a good thing, he and Avery Bradley, to bring up how they want the NBA and the NBA owners to affect Black lives in this country and Black businesses. So while we are in agreement, I am in agreement with Stephen A. It's just what he said. I'm in total disagreement with. That's what I say. Don't try to trap me. All right. I see what
Marv, what you got?
To use to coin one of Stephen A.'s words, that's blasphemous. What are you talking about? Okay. The NBA players aren't normal. They're not 9-to-5ers like most of us. Outside of you, Raquel, we know you not. But most of us are 9-to-5ers, and that's just kind of what we do. But NBA players are different. I've looked all week, and Tony Kornheiser to Will Bond to Stephen A. telling all the NBA players not to give up their platform. They need to play because it's important for them. What are you talking about? This is not 1985. Their platform is Twitter, Instagram, Facebook Live. They don't need an NBA basketball game for a platform. They get way more followers and people listening to what they say on these different social media outlets. So I'm not all for the whole don't give up your platform thing. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And for Adam Silver, as a deputy commissioner of the NBA, any good CEO knows that you need to know your workforce, right? The workforce of the NBA is 80% Black. What's important to the workforce is what you need to know as a CEO. Your whole workforce is pretty much Black athletes. What's important to them right now is what's going on in our society. Social change, the issues that we're dealing with, and it's important for them to be able to speak on this and stand in their communities. So I think that forcing an NBA season when these times are just a little bit, we're seeing things that are different right now, and I think that you need to know who you stand for. So as a deputy commissioner, I think he should take a different stance. I think he should allow his players to not play. I think they should sit out this season to be able to, like LeBron is doing, to create change in voting, getting people out to the polls, to talk about this gerrymandering that's going on with all our districts. These are important things that we need to do. Even from a social issue standpoint, from some of our players, they need to develop a coalition of empathetic leaders. Maybe some that can go out and talk about mental health issues. Some can go out and talk about voting rights. Some that can go out and talk about, Black men and being great fathers. The economic disparity between Black and white people. These are things that we need to start bringing up. And what better way to do that than NBA players who have some of the biggest platforms in the world that we see? That's why the NBA has become global, because they have a willingness to stand for things that other people don't stand for, to wear the I Can't Breathe t-shirts, all the things that you've seen. So if you're a global brand and you stood for things that other professional franchises haven't stood for, go all the way. Let's see you make a change. Let's see you make a difference, man. Stop talking about it. Let's be about it. That's where
let me ask you this.
I agree with that, Marv.
What about the financial ramifications of not having that NBA season? From what they're saying is that the players, the collective bargaining agreement may be reopened. They would lose, $2 billion. I mean, all of that affects the bottom line of the business going forward, and that's significant. I think the commissioner, I give him credit.
Hey, one season doesn't change the financial status of any owner in the
Raquel,
NBA.
It will though.
They could sacrifice one season and still be billionaires.
But there are other ramifications of that.
It's not going to kill them financially.
Like, for the players, from the players' perspective, the collective bargaining agreement can be reopened. A lot of the contracts and things that they've signed will be null and void. So there are other considerations that
they're not gonna. What are you gonna do? Cancel a whole league? Tell them all the owners don't have the power right now. If all the players come together collectively, they have all the power. Because let me tell you what white owners aren't gonna do. They are not going to say, okay, because of this agreement we have, now that you guys want to play, we're not going to sign you. Hell no.
Well, they're not going to say that. They're not going to say that. But Raquel, they certainly can say. They certainly can say, in our last agreement, we gave you 51% of the revenue, but since we lost this money, we're only going to give you 46. And that means that the salaries go down.
They should be willing to take that 46 instead of 51.
There are some things that you have to take into consideration. And the other thing I'll say to Marv is, from a social media platform, what better way for players to voice their opinion than to have a NBA special prior to Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals?
I mean, Lee, but they can do that now. Well, what's a 5-minute interview gonna do where they may say something controversial that they can't do 24/7 on their social media platforms? I just don't buy it. I don't buy that aspect of it. I don't care about the platform and the games and all that stuff. And these guys got so much reach now outside of the basketball, outside of playing the game and the game being broadcast, that it's not even funny. And a T-shirt's not gonna change anything. Them saying something controversial in an interview is not going to change anything. If you want to change something, then don't play.
30 million people at one time seeing LeBron James sit down and talk to Leslie Biss. I don't know who we're going to. That's tremendous. That's huge.
You got 30 million people watching him work out on Facebook Live. I mean,
come on, Mark. You gotta understand.
You are outvoted in this. Let's move on.
Hey guys,
you are outvoted in this league. We don't agree with you. They should not play.
We have a caller. We do have a caller on the line. Caller, you are on the air with After the Buzzers.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
What's your question or statement?
I'm actually a friend of Lee Jones.
Lee, you got friends?
What's happening?
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing
good. I just called in to say that the Cowboys ain't gonna win nothing this year. Ain't no need you getting on here talking about all of that, because it's not going to happen. Me and Mr. Jones are actually high school teammates, ex-high school teammates, classmates, and friends probably since we were about 10 years old. And we used to play basketball together. You know, the type of basketball where you had rings of dirt around your socks. That's how I go back.
What's your point, bro? What's your point?
What was that?
Well, tell us what your point is. What you're trying to say? Hey, they know it. They heard my stories. They know I was a great athlete. No,
I just need to know if he had any game. I don't know about it.
Well, let me just put it to you this way. That he was a good athlete. He was. I mean, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna be honest about it. He's the only. This guy actually taught me how to play basketball against. Lee Jones is a southpaw. So he is not easy to guard. I'm letting you know that now. So I learned how to guard.
How much you pay you for this phone call?
What? And I was gonna say, what's the question or statement so we can address it
what
in
you got
regards to the show?
The statement, the question is that why don't? Well, I got two. One, I want to address in a serious nature. Do you guys think that someone is going to sign Colin Kaepernick?
I do. I personally think someone will sign Colin Kaepernick. I think that the climate warrants it now. I think that people want to be on the right side of history. So yeah, I think somebody's going to take a shot and sign Colin Kaepernick. That's my honest opinion. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I do think Colin will get signed. I think he'll fit in several programs right now, and he's still possibly better than some of the starters that's on the field. Definitely a great number 2.
Yeah, Atlanta Falcons, or Minnesota Vikings would be excellent places for Colin Kaepernick to play. I think the Vikings, because I never have been a big Kirk Cousins guy, and with the unrest that happened, and also Atlanta, because of the demographics and the African American demographics there, would be excellent spots and teams for Kaepernick to sign.
Okay, but what about Ryan though? Matt, you think Matt Ryan is gonna? How do you think he's gonna feel about that?
Well, Matt Ryan is on the record as saying that he feels Colin Kaepernick deserves a chance in the league. And let's be honest. And Sammy, thank you for your call. We're gonna move on, but let's be honest. Nobody's going to sign Colin Kaepernick right now to start, so he's going to come in as a backup and prove himself, and that's okay. Because the cream always rises to the top. So, I mean, he's a talented quarterback. He's only 32 years old. He has, a lot of people look at him and say, well, he's been out of the game for 4 years. But Marv, he hadn't been hit for 4 years either.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. He's young 32.
He's a young 32. And the way he threw the ball at his workout, I mean, the guy still has it. And the cream will rise to the top. I'm not saying he's going to replace Matt Ryan right off the bat. Injuries happen and opportunities, you just take advantage of it. The first step is to get back in the league.
I have a question on my live feed from Jeffrey Johnson, and he says, I don't think that Kaepernick wants to play anymore. I believe that his mission has been accomplished. I think from a political and a justice standpoint, being an advocate, an activist, I somewhat agree with that. I do get the feeling that Kaepernick certainly has made history. He has certainly done his job as far as activism for our people. And I do get the feeling that maybe he doesn't want to play football anymore.
Why do you get that feeling? Jeffrey, why do you get that feeling as well? I'd be curious, Raquel, to tell me why you think he doesn't want to play.
I think it's been too much time. I think 4 years is still a lot of time. I do think he's young because he hasn't been hit. You're right. He's been gone 4 years. He hasn't been hit 4 years. But at the same time, 4 years is still a long way to be away from the game. And he has spent a lot of time being an activist versus a football player. And I think the dynamics, they do change slightly. Now, again, I would love to see him come back. But I do feel like I feel like the media is pushing him coming back more than he is pushing him coming back.
Yeah. You have to work on that.
It is the fans, people like us, the owners, the people that have the pressure in the NFL from what they did to him. But I feel like it's the people more than it is him at this point. We haven't seen him become as vocal about coming back as we've seen everybody else in the world. So that says something as well. He very well may not want to play anymore. And if he doesn't, that will be absolutely okay, because I do feel like what God put him here to do, he has done, and he has done it gracefully, and he's still making the same money. And let me tell you something. I can watch football and love football from the sideline and make more money than the players that's playing and enjoy the game. if I were
Right.
Kaepernick.
Quarterback signing for $35 million a year. I don't think he's making as much money. But I'll say this: he had a tryout in November. He wanted to play then. I still think he wants to play. I think he'll play at a high level once given the opportunity. I don't really see it. Everything that's came out of his camp. Now, I would like to hear Cap say it. That I think that's the missing piece for me. I do agree. He hasn't went on record. They've reported that his camp says he's in the best shape of his life and he wants to play. But it would be great to hear the words, I do want to get back in the NFL. And I did say it in November. He said he was ready and will take a call from anybody. So, I mean, the last words we heard from him was he wanted to get back in. So.
November, we're a world away from November. We're, heading into July.
Yeah. That's true. But again, we can only go off of the last thing that we heard come out of his mouth about playing until we hear something different. So at least that's my opinion.
And
Mark,
we also
I want
have
him to play because I think he's talented.
Yeah, and Raquel, I really agree with what you said, and I think that people also have to don't remember just the mental strain this has taken on him, being a catalyst of a movement and kind of being the face of what started this all. I mean, we can't imagine the things that he's gone through outside of football, what he's had to endure. Sometimes you lose the fire for things. I mean, he probably doesn't feel the same about the league, and with the NFL or anything which you play at a high level, you got to have that fire. You got to have that passion to compete on that level. And maybe he doesn't have it anymore. I mean, I can only imagine what he's been through kind of trying to deal with just everything that's come from what he tried to start. So, I'd be fine if he never played again. But the competitive, athletic side of me wants to see him come back and do his thing, maybe win a Super Bowl. I mean, it's just only right to me that would happen for him. But, he's his own man. He's got to do what's best for him.
Hey, we've got another caller as well.
Okay.
Caller, you are live with After the Buzzers Sport Podcast.
Thank you. Yes, how's it going, Brother Lee?
What's up, Tony? What's happening?
Good. Don't worry about being outnumbered. Marvin, that was a very intelligent.
Speak up, Tony. We can't hear you.
I told Brother Marvin that was a very intelligent commentary he gave on Kaepernick a few seconds ago. I would really like to see him come back. He has stayed in shape for the last 4 years. But I have a question for you. What do you think, Lee, should be done with Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State? Are you familiar with the controversy there?
I'm very familiar with the controversy, and I think we're going to touch on it a little bit later. But,
I was going to say we're going to lead right into it, and we might as well keep the call online. I'm going to go ahead and pose the question, and then we're going to get into that dialogue. So 2,000 yards, Chubba refused to do any further workouts for the football team because he's upset about Mike wearing, the network T-shirt, right? So our thoughts on that, and I'll let you start, Marv, since the caller actually addressed you in this. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are this is nothing new, especially from him. I mean, if we remember correctly, he was the one who said the coronavirus was the Chinese virus. I mean, you guys, we have to kind of go back and remember that. He refers to the media as mainstream media. We all know what those dog whistles are. We all know where he gets that from. And he said that our society is non-committal now because of liberalism. So, I think it goes hand in hand with the T-shirt that he wore. And it's kind of ironic that you have those views, but you're making millions off the back of black athletes, as we always say. But, most college football coaches and basketball coaches, they can be kind of blind because they don't live in that world. What about Dabo Swinney the other week when he said he didn't even realize the history of Clemson University? Like, you have the privilege to be that blind about where you work because you don't face it, you don't deal with it, you don't think about it. But that just goes to show you the arrogance of some of these white coaches who coach these black kids and make millions off their back, that they're so naive to the things that they kind of perpetuate and put out there that these young black men have to absorb. And a lot of us, because I've been a former athlete, are scared to say things because you don't know what the repercussions are going to be. So with Chubb, I give him a lot of respect because He said, damn what anybody thinks, what anybody says, or what my coach says. He already know he going to make millions in the NFL anyway, so he didn't have a lot to lose when he said this. But I applaud him for saying it because he needed to be called out, because that's just insensitive when you're leading a whole bunch of young black men and trying to shape their lives. It's just an insensitive thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Marvin. And just to add an asterisk to Raquel's comment about Mr. Shelby, he wasn't just a 2,000-yard rusher. He led the nation. I don't know if you know that or not. He led the nation in rushing last year. Okay?
Yeah. Would have been a first-round draft pick if he came out this year.
I did some research on him last night, and he'd probably be a late first-round draft choice. There's one flaw he has. He doesn't hit the hole extremely fast, but he has good hands. He's a good kid, a junior transfer kid.
Yeah, he's a
good
100-meter guy,
kid.
Tony. He'll be fine.
Yeah, I said he has. I did research on him last night. Yes, he will be a first-round draft choice. But Marvin, I remember your comment. You were right about Gundy, and also Raquel. You can't say just the network. That's a far right-wing network.
It is.
That's one American that he was on. Okay, just not a network, a far right-wing network.
Absolutely.
But going back to Gundy, Marvin, we remember him when he came on television and made an ass of himself and said, "I'm a man, I'm a man."
40-year-old man and all the stuff everybody remembers that rant that he did.
Hey, Tony, thanks for calling. Great comments, man. We appreciate you. Always call back in, bro. We always appreciate your perspective.
Appreciate it, Tony.
Yeah. He shouldn't have even apologized though. That's the one thing that for me sort of bothered me. How quickly he apologized, because he did nothing wrong. He called him out, rightfully so, and he had other players that backed him, and I thought he should have stood his ground, because it was totally insensitive. These people calling the Black Lives Movement a criminal organization and all of that foolishness. So I appreciate what he did. I wish he had stood up a little bit more, but I appreciate it. Lamondre, I think we have another caller, correct?
Yep, we do. Give me a second, and we'll get you there. Caller, you are on the air with After the Buzzers.
Hello. This is Vincent calling back in.
Hi, Vincent. How are you?
What's up, Vincent?
Hello. I'm doing great. Lee, Raquel, Marvin, good to hear from you all again today.
Good to hear from you.
Couple of comments. First of all, Sammy Campbell, I was one of those teammates along with Lee and Sammy, and playing out there on the dirt courts and playing football and all of that. And I can vouch for what Sammy said. Lee was he was a really good athlete. I know you all can't believe that.
Come on, man.
I know you can't imagine that, but he was a tremendous athlete. So, and one of the leaders out there. A couple of comments. First of all, on the Kaepernick, I agree with everything that was said, but the one thing that I will say is, everyone wants to go out on their own terms.
Absolutely.
And whether it's in corporate America or anything, if you're fired in corporate America, you want to go out on your own terms.
Absolutely.
And that is the only thing that I see that will convince Kaepernick to come back, because he didn't go out the way that he wanted to go out. Now, Lee knows, because we've had this conversation many times, it's not a money thing, because I think Kaepernick probably got $300, $400, $500 million in his settlement with the NFL. I think he really, really took them to the bank in order to settle that case, because they had him. They had the NFL. So if I'm Kaepernick, why would I settle it when I'm getting ready to go to trial, and we're going to have Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and all of them come on the stands and have to prove that I'm not one of the best 32 or 64 quarterbacks in the league. They can't do that.
That's a good point.
In order for them to settle that case, it had to be really worth his while, and I think that it was something big, and that's why they put the gag order on, because they don't want anyone to know.
Oh,
And
yeah. So when he signed that agreement, he probably has a confidentiality agreement that he can't talk about the numbers.
They did. They put a gag order on it. He can't say anything. They don't want him to know how much they have to give him, but they have to give him a lot of money. So I think that from a money standpoint, and certainly what he's doing from an activism standpoint, they're at their peak. And so he would not want to come back for any other reason but to show people that I'm going to do this thing my way. I'm going to go out on my terms. I know I'm still one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and I'm going to show you that. And that would be my reason. The other thing with the Oklahoma State running back, I agree with you, Lee. I hate that he had to come back and massage it a little bit because his point was so well taken. And when you are a first-team All-American and you run for over 2,000 yards, you have that platform. It's perfectly okay for you to stand up and say something has to change here, and I'm not standing for this. And here's my coach who's in our face talking about how much he loves us, but yet his actions are speaking something totally different. So, great that he stood up. I think that other players will follow suit, and I just hate that he had to massage it. For some reason, we feel like there's a need for us to come back and kind of massage things. Yeah, and I just hate that aspect of it. But
it's still
I love what he did.
It's still that brainwashing. It's still that brainwashing that they do when they get you by yourself and they exert that pressure, because he was totally right in everything that he said. So
yes, he was. Yes, he was. Yeah, he absolutely was, and glad he did it. Other players in all sports will, they will certainly take that example, and if they see some wrong things. I mean, we see the strength coach from University of Iowa was just fired. Things like that are going to continue to happen. This is an incredible time that we're in, and we're going to see more and more of that across all disciplines, all industries, everything. We're going to see more of that. George Floyd, rest in peace. A tragedy what happened, but he can really, really feel good about the change that his tragedy is causing across the world, and we're seeing it every day, and we're going to continue to see it every day. So, but love you guys. I'm listening, and I'm going to go offline now, but I'm listening to the rest of the show.
Hey, Vincent, you stay on, because I want you to call back when we talk about the top 5 running backs, because I know you and I would disagree. I want to hear it because I know.
Okay, I will do that. Okay.
All right, brother. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Guys, I'm going to move on to the next topic. We didn't fully cover this based on what we have on the agenda, but I'm going to go ahead and move on because we were there too long. Ohio State University is asking its players to sign a risk waiver to protect the university from liabilities from COVID. When we talked about this last week, I spoke from a mother's perspective, and now I would speak from a professional perspective. If you want to now have my child, my client, my potential client that goes into the NFL to all of a sudden sign a waiver, you know that they shouldn't be playing. Because otherwise, you don't need a waiver. You want to ask a kid to sign a waiver so that if there is a liability, if he should drop dead running up and down a football field, you're not responsible, because now you want to push that ownership onto a child. If they felt so confident, Lee, there's no way they would ask these kids to sign a waiver. And as a professional, I would be embarrassed to work for a group of people that would ask children to sign a waiver so that they can make their millions and billions of dollars from broadcasts, ticket sales, food sales, so on and so forth. So there's no doubt in my mind that colleges, universities, especially Ohio State, understands that, yeah, we might have a few players drop dead. Sure. So let's go ahead and get them to sign a waiver so that at least we have some type of buyout that said, well, you know what? Yeah. He knew the risk, and he loved the game so much that he was willing to die for it. And that is what these white guys are gonna say. If they weren't worried, they wouldn't have a waiver in place. Hence, they shouldn't play football because these kids are at risk. Period. Point blank.
Yeah. So here's my take. This has gotten kind of funny to me because this is rich. So let's get this straight. Not only does the NCAA have free labor in which they make billions of dollars off of, now they don't want to. My death warrant. Now they don't want to take responsibility of the working conditions that labor works under, right? I want you to go out there and make all this money for us, but I ain't taking no responsibility for the environment in which you work in, okay? So I want my cake and eat it too, and you gonna sign it because you know that this is the only route to you for generational wealth. So we got you. So this voluntary workout stuff, man, this is so funny. This is just a farce. All of it is. NCAA should be ashamed of themselves, but we all know what this is. We shouldn't be surprised. This is about money. There's no way they should be playing this college football season. They have nothing in place for the things that they're going to see. It's all well and good that you're testing guys, like we said last week, before voluntary workouts and all this. But when the season comes in and you got 9 guys that test positive and they've been around 30 other guys and you got to sit all them out in quarantine, then what's going to happen? What about the coaches that are on the road recruiting in Florida, in Texas, in other places, and they come back and they got to be quarantined? They've been around kids. How do you do this? How do you effectively do this as a university? I've seen no answers. I've seen no plans. This is ridiculous.
Man, y'all are some rough people. What?
Hey, if you're rough, you're insensitive, and you might as well be.
Wait a minute. Why are you resorting to name calling? That's what I want to know. No,
that's rough. You started it.
Look, this is what I'll say. That's why, Marv, and I agree with both you and Raquel as far as the waiver. First of all, every lawyer that I've talked to or heard said the waiver wouldn't stand up in court at all. So players, that's the first thing. The waiver would not stand up. So, but that's why I say college athletes should unionize because, Marv, you're right. They need to learn to affect their working environment. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's the perfect time with this COVID situation going on for them to say, we have to unionize because we have to make sure our working conditions are such that it's going to benefit us and we're going to be sure that we're going to be safe. See, that's why I said it weeks ago, and I'll always say this. The power rests in the players' hand. They just have never used it because of that so-called brainwashing that they get when these coaches come in and tell them how much they love them. See, you can't tell me how much you love me. You got to show me, right? You got to show me. And right. So that's why NCAA unionize. That's why they're so scared of the players unionizing because they get to affect their working conditions, right? And name, image, and likeness falls under that, and even higher awards as far as financial aid and all of that. That's why the players this Ohio State is a case study in why NCAA players should unionize and affect change. I still say they should play, but affect change. That's what I say.
All right, we do.
Thank you, Raquel. I appreciate you.
And we do have another caller waiting.
Yeah, come on in, caller. Help me out, please.
Caller, you are on the air. Can you please turn down your device?
Can you please turn down your device?
Okay, got it. All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. How you doing? What's your name, man?
Okay, I'm Jeff, Raquel's customer, I guess, and friend. But,
all right, come on. Oh, wait a minute, Jeff. Let me ask you something. Just because you're her customer and friend doesn't mean that you come on here and agree with everything she says. Well, now, I just throw that out there.
I'm actually surprised she said what she said about the Ohio.
There you go, Jeff. Bring it on, Jeff. No, bring it on.
We gotta let him talk because we can't hear him, Lee.
Well, I want to hear it. Come on, Jeff.
Well, I'm surprised because, she's a business owner, and I had discussed with her about, opening up her restaurant, and, my concern about this thing is not being over. And so in unison with her comment about the Ohio, football program or whatever, like college football, is right in line with what I've been trying to, I guess, get the point across. Like, hey, look, we don't know how this thing is doing spreading, right? And me being I took a certification for contact tracing, and just learning about it, and then even with that type of information, I'm like, I wonder why they even open back up these restaurants and these other establishments. But if the government is not opening back up, then I don't think any other business should be open. And then when it comes down to college football players, right? Because they're saying that they can be a liability. And I'm like saying to myself, you should have them insured anyway, right?
Right.
And I know when I was in college, when I played, we were insured. I actually broke my knee playing basketball in college, and the insurance that I had from the school took care of it. So, but I'm in tune with her comments saying that, okay, look, why would you even need, like, you in the past we never needed them to sign a waiver for anything else, right? So why would they need to sign a waiver for this?
So I'll say this, Jeff. When you have guys on a football field, you don't have the opportunity to have 6 feet the distance because it's a contact sport. That's number one. And that's the difference between being in a restaurant where individuals are 6 feet apart. You don't have that flexibility when you're playing a sport. So for me, it's a huge concern when I'm thinking about, especially children. So we're not talking about adults that are making decisions. We're talking about children that are making decisions. And again, there is no distance that you can say you can stay apart because it is a contact sport. So it's a little bit different than going into a restaurant and seeing people that are spaced out differently, right? I stand firmly when I say I would not, if it were my child, and I can't get any more personable than this, if it were my child, he could not play, period. He would come home and they will have to do whatever they're going to do and deal with Mama Bear later, because I promise you, my name may be on their jerseys the following season.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you on that, just from the responsibility and the liability factor. But why would you put your kids at any type of risk at all? And so, so I agree with you. I just want to, can I just go? I want to go back to the Kaepernick thing real quick. I wanted to say that I think it would be embarrassing for him to go back, because what he may do is open up. I don't think Kaepernick want to open himself up to the possibility of failing, right? Or somebody like just got this vendetta against him, and he goes try out and he doesn't make the team, or he doesn't add up for whatever, right?
Yeah.
So and so that's my point. I would love to see him come back and play, but I don't think he needs to prove anything. He was good. And then I think the argument with them was they were saying that that he wasn't good enough to make the team. That's why nobody really signed him up, which was a bogus argument. But that may play a role if he comes back.
Hey, Jeff, we appreciate the call, man. Appreciate it. I mean, I'll say this, Jeff, the one thing I will say is the players are covered, but like Raquel said, they're only covered so much. If it's a wrongful death thing, then they won't be covered, and they could sue the college. So that's why the waiver comes in. But I also say, everybody keeps, and I agree with Vincent, this is personal for Cap. This is personal for Cap. And the last thing we all heard was he wanted to play. Now, we hadn't heard from him since then, but the last thing is he wants to play. So, I mean, let that man come out and play. I think, hey, I'm comfortable either way, but I know the last thing that he said was he was ready, able, or talk to any team. He wants to play. So, hey, let that man come out and play. I'm not going to put my what I feel he should do. It's his livelihood. It's his wanting to prove something to the people. So let him play, and I commend him on that.
I think one of the things we didn't talk about though is there is a possibility he can get out there and not perform. I didn't even think about that in all honesty, because from a competitive standpoint, being a college athlete, playing basketball in college, high school, I didn't even consider that it is a possibility he can get out on that field and not be the same Kaepernick.
It's a strong possibility.
But that's a possibility. But let me say this. Any athlete, you want to, if you saying I still can play, and the last thing we saw him throwing the football and running around, he wants to go out there and prove it at the highest level that he still can do it. You know, the supreme athletes, they don't go out there thinking about failure. They go out there saying, I can do it. Just give me a shot to do it. So I think he's good. I think he's good. I don't think failure is.
I'm with you on that, Lee. Whenever I do anything, I go into it the mindset of greatness. I don't even consider failure. So I'm with you 100% on that. But I just didn't think about what if the guy isn't the same. It didn't cross my mind, because like you, I'm thinking he's going back out. He's ready. But there's
y'all remember the last time we saw Kaepernick, he didn't look that good. Let's be real. The last time he was in an NFL game.
Well, he threw for over 2,000 yards. He had 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. That's not a bad season. But let me say this: he'll be coming back as a backup. There is not 64 quarterbacks that are better than Colin Kaepernick. So
not.
Yeah,
you put it in the content that he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Now, a lot of other stuff goes into that, and owners, but that's not 64. That's better.
Yeah.
Lamondre,
we have another caller. Caller, you are on the air with After the Buzzer Sports Podcast, and please turn down your device.
Absolutely, we have another caller.
Can you please turn down your device? We need you to turn your device all the way down.
Go ahead, caller. State your name. You're on with After the Buzzers.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. How are you?
All right, good. Hey, this is Elliot Lyons.
What's up, EJ?
Hey, what's up? I've enjoyed this. I'm sitting here listening. So first and foremost, I want to be the third one in line tonight to let you guys know just who you're talking to. Lee Jones was one of the greatest athletes that we grew up with.
Hey, Marvin, I didn't pay anybody. That's just legit, man.
I don't know, man. This smell real fishy. Like Kyrie Irving said, this fishy.
No, it's legit. He was a great athlete. So we enjoyed some good times growing up with him. I just want to comment real quickly on the Ohio State situation. And I come from the perspective of being a father of a college athlete.
Okay.
And I'll just tell you, to me, this one is easy. I agree 100% with some of the comments, but this one is easy. If they wanted me to sign a waiver for my kid to come out and play, given everything that's going on, that one is a no-brainer. It's funny. There's no discussion.
Yeah.
It won't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, this just won't happen. I mean, there is absolutely no discussion whatsoever. Yeah. None. You know, I work down in Tampa, and University of South Florida just opened back up and brought 75 of their players back just a couple of days ago, and 2 of them already tested positive for coronavirus.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, this one is a no-brainer. I mean,
you need to work on your friend Lee, because Lee really wants the kids to play football. So you really need to, off air, call him and help him understand this, Papa Bear.
We all do. We all want it back. We need it. We love it. But they got to do it right.
They have to do it right.
They're not going to put my kid in harm's way. And then leave the liability completely on me is not going to happen. So that one is easy.
Thank you so much for your call. Right. I think we are all on the same page.
Raquel, why do you always have to take shots at me? I want it done properly. I said, union strike, whatever. But I do think
that's not going to change them catching COVID. You want them to play.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Lee, you want them to play. You want football to happen. You want basketball to happen. So we don't have to go through the circles of what you want them to do. You still want them to play right now.
Yeah. I do want to play, but there's a right way to play and a wrong way to play. And it's certainly not signing waivers.
We don't have a right way for these kids to play, Lee.
No.
So
the right
you're the bad guy in this one. I'm sorry. Just take that role and let's keep going.
All right. We do have a comment from Facebook, and it says, this is from Sammy Campbell, and it says, Lee just want them damn Cowboys to play.
Absolutely. How about them Cowboys?
Yeah.
How about them Cowboys?
And he wants them to play and possibly dropping dead on the football field.
You know what we need to do? We need to have them damn Cowboy fans sign a waiver so they can't make excuses at the end of the year when the Cowboys don't make the playoffs.
There won't be any excuses. I can guarantee you.
Cowboy fans.
I can guarantee you one thing. The only excuse is going to be made in Tampa because we'll be in the Super Bowl in Tampa. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. 6-17.
Cowboys won't make it to the playoffs, I don't think.
And we also
jealousy is a disease. That's all I can say.
Okay,
jealousy
we also
1995. I was dunking in 1995.
Okay, guys.
All right, guys. So let's move on. We're gonna talk a little bit about college presidents, ADs, athletic directors, and the NCAA not being more vocal about Black Lives Matter, the movement. Your opinion on that, and I'll start. They're not vocal because it truly doesn't affect them. It affects the players to a certain extent, but it doesn't affect their families. It doesn't affect their children, their grandchildren, their nieces, their nephews, because they don't have a target on their necks. They can go run in the neighborhood and be safe. They can get pulled over, fight the police officer, get in a police officer's car and drive off. I don't know if you've seen that video. If you haven't, please do. It's a white guy, fights the officer, beats them up, gets in their car. They never, ever considered drawing their guns.
Yeah.
So they're not vocal because they still don't quite get it. They don't know why these Black people are making so much tango noise. They don't know why.
Yeah.
Because they still don't understand what's happening to Black people, and it's not affecting them directly. Athletes is an indirect issue because they can always go get another Black athlete. Period.
Ooh,
so it does not affect them. So they don't need to be vocal yet. What makes them vocally is for the kids to not play, for those kids to go to HBCUs, for those kids to simply not play. I bet you they will be vocal. I bet you they'll be saying, I'm so sorry. They'll be doing what the NFL is doing right now. They will be doing what the NFL is doing. They will be saying, you know what, we're going to kneel. Coaches are going to start, I'm going to kneel with my kids. That is how you get them to be vocal. You want them to be vocal? Black kids don't play. Don't put your uniforms on. Put in a transfer. They'll start talking.
I semi-agree with what you're saying. It's really about economics. These guys understand what's going on. They understand that this is big business, and for some of their colleges, this would be a tremendous setback for them economically, and they're not putting any messages out because they know there is no message to put out, right?
Right.
So they're being quiet. They're not saying anything. You saw Oklahoma State's AD immediately said this is disturbing about Mike Gundy because, again, if those players say we're not practicing, they were going to fire Mike Gundy. It's Mike Gundy getting in there and twisting it and doing the good old boy stuff that got Chuba Hubbard sort of the bag down that helped him, that saved his job. But these guys, look, they know for a fact that, hey, if these guys don't play, it's going to cripple their system of really indentured servitude right now, because that's what's going on. For young Blacks to not have an option, and this is my master plan. I'm going to write a op-ed about this. I just want to let you know that, Raquel, I am multifaceted and talented. I'm right now, but I feel that instead of people challenging the NFL model, Marv, like Maurice Carrette and other players have done in the past, that's the wrong route, because the NFL has a monopoly on professional football. What has to happen is the Oprah Winfrey's, the P. Diddy's, the black dollar should pull it together, and they should challenge the college model, right? Because the college model says that you have to be 3 years removed from your high school to go to the NFL. If you take the XFL's model, right, of paying them, you might want to pay them a little bit more, $150,000, $200,000, and you sign them to 3-year contracts coming straight out of high school and only sign the high school players. Do you understand how powerful that'll be for young blacks? And then you won't have this facade of them going to college, not going to school, barely staying eligible. There are just some people that would prefer to just play football and not go to college. I was 26 when I went back and got my bachelor's degree. I got my master's at 28. So that can't happen. So the economics of this thing is what always drives me, thinking outside the box and getting alternative models. But for these college presidents who predominantly are white, they're not going to say anything. The ADs are not going to say anything because it's messing up. The ultimate thing is the money that comes into their colleges, Mark.
Yeah, and I was talking to 2 of my friends who are basketball coaches in Power 5 conferences right now, and just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, Lee, do you know that there's no black commissioner out of any of the Power 5 conferences?
Yeah.
No black commissioners. Yeah. Who the school presidents, athletic directors, who they report to? Your commissioners of your leagues. We're gonna do what's good for the league. We're gonna not say anything to mess up this economic structure that we had and this gold mine that we have, right? And then we were talking about the teams that made the NCAA tournament, and it's like 2.4% of students on those Power 5 campuses are black men, yet they make up almost 60% of the basketball rosters. Like, they don't say anything because they're not the general population at those schools. They don't have to say anything, and it's what we've always said. Right. We're giving you an opportunity to come here, shoot a basketball, put it through a hoop, and maybe you can make some money for yourself and your family. Other than that, be quiet, do what we tell you to do. That's pretty much what it is, and that's what I've always known it to be. We see times are changing, but Lee, you hit it on the head. I mean, that's what it's about.
That's why that G League option is so powerful in the short term right now, Mar, because you're getting top athletes saying, look, if y'all going to pay me $500K, I'll just go do this for a year. Boom, that's $500,000. I'm changing my entire family's financial structure. If football would take that model and someone get smart and say, you're challenging the wrong thing. Don't challenge the NFL. You challenge the college model. That's the alternative. And then you create a whole new revenue stream. And I would hope that some of our African-American, millionaires and would come and put that league and structure together, because that's the place where you challenge and make the change right
there. It is. Well said.
All right. So now we have Roger Goodell.
Raquel, we do have a call waiting.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lamondra.
Go ahead.
Caller, you are on the air. You are here, caller.
Yes. Lee, this is Tony calling again, and I'll be very brief. It hurts me to see Ms. Thomas hit you with punches and you can't respond. But I just wanted to ask Ms. Thomas, do you know Gene Smith?
Gene Smith is the athletic director.
No. I asked Ms. Thomas, and I was going to wait if she didn't know. And the reason I called in because you said this is what the white boys would tell the athletes about the players.
He's breaking up. I actually
How
don't
come,
know
Tony?
what
We
he's
can't
saying.
hear you. We can't hear you, Tony.
I said, Mr. Smith is the athletic director of Ohio State. He is the charge. He is leading the pledge. He said it's not a legal document. It's a pledge. A black man, not white, Mrs. Thomas, but a black man, Gene Smith. Have a good day.
Let me say this.
So I'll say this in rebuttal to your guy, because I don't like your guy, by the way.
Hey, come on. Come on.
I'm not saying, I didn't say the athletic director or the coach or whomever was black and white. I'm talking about whites as a whole. And if he's okay with signing a waiver, then buddy, go ahead and sign it. Put your kid on the line. I'm fine with it. If you're fine with it, I'm fine with it. If you want to sign the waiver and put your kid on the line, no problem. But for me and most of America, we are not willing to sign a waiver and put our kids on a football field. That's my only point. So you can go back and forth with the white, black, and I'm fine with that. And again, I didn't say your guy was white or black. Didn't even think about him. He wasn't even a consideration. When I said white, I was talking about whites as a whole, the money that they make off of our kids playing football. And it was about the waiver. And again, Sir Tony, what's his name?
Tony, come on, Raquel.
If Tony wants to sign a waiver, buddy, go right ahead. If you want to sign a waiver, put your kid on the line, go right ahead. I'll co-sign it for you if you like. But I'm not putting my son on the line. I'm not signing the waiver for my son.
And let me help my sister out, because I feel the emotion coming through the screen. It's hit me. This is what I'll say to Tony's comments for you, Raquel. Yeah, Gene Smith is an African American, but remember, Gene Smith reports to the college president and the boosters at Ohio State. Okay?
Absolutely.
So let's not get it twisted.
Absolutely.
There's a pecking order there, and it's not Gene Smith who's getting them to sign that waiver. Trust me on that, Tony. Yeah, hey, don't mess with my girl. Now, I got her back. I ain't gonna let you beat up on her. And look, I'm a gentleman, Tony. That's why I let Raquel take the punches at me. That's why.
No, I mean, but I think at the end of the day, for white kids, this is about kids across the board, really. The black-white thing, yeah, it's an issue, Mr. Tony. It is indeed an issue that I'm very sensitive about. But if I was a white mother, I wouldn't sign the waiver, because they're at a risk, all of them, if they step on that field because of what COVID has done to our country. So as a white mommy bear, Tony, I wouldn't sign it either.
And I have to be honest, there still hasn't been a player that has died or been seriously in any type of distress.
But Lee, you know,
we have to say that, Barb. We have to say it, because that's the truth of it.
But we know it's coming.
Well, it may.
So the tea leaves are out there, the writing's on the wall. We know what's coming. And what's just so disturbing about it, there is no clear plan about how they're going to handle this. I've talked to several of my friends who coach, and they said, you know more than I do. Yeah, we're speaking to the NCAA. They just making this up as they go.
The NCAA got issues. The NCAA have issues. You're right.
And just hoping it works itself out. But we all know this is not a good look.
You're right, Mar. I agree with that, definitely.
We've kind of talked about this already, our next topic, and it's back to Colin and our thoughts on Goodell's Rogers statement in reference to, contract and signing him. I think we've already talked about it, but if you guys have any last comments, we can take.
Can I ask you on that, Raquel? What do you think about Roger Goodell? I know we touched on it a little bit, but just for you, mommy, I know you tell me what you think about Goodell. And I think he's trying, but tell me what your thoughts are.
I think he is a by all means necessary guy.
That's fair.
I think he is if we need to do this to appease them, let's do it, because we're going to lose money. I think is the jack
ahead of the curve.
He's the jack of all trades. He's the peacemaker. He's the guy that is going to do whatever needs to be done on either side. And it doesn't make him not a good old boy.
Yeah,
but he's smart. He's smart enough to say, I have to mend fences across the board. So I think he's a by any means necessary. And if we have to swallow our tongues, if we have to eat shit and backpedal a little bit, let's do that so that we can appease these people, because we need these people to ultimately affect our overall goal. We can't do our overall goal. We can't accomplish our overall mission without these people. That's how I feel about Roger.
I'm with you most of it. You got a little heavy on me towards the end, but I'm with you. Mark?
No, I just think it's pretty absurd that a lot of people started coming out talking about, Roger Goodell, he kind of broke ranks and made a statement about everybody, Black Lives Matter, and then players can kneel and all this kind of. You think he'd have a discussion with the owners on how they were going to come out and what was right and appropriate for him to say? He worked for the owners. Stop giving Roger Goodell credit. Like he came out and said something and he breaking ranks with the owners. No, he didn't. This was a conversation that they had. They had to get out in front of it as usual, trying to gain some support to kind of take the conversation in a different direction. So, I mean, like Raquel said, he's a figurehead. He's a figurehead of the NFL. I don't expect him to do anything that's going to make a major difference in this movement, how black athletes are treated. He's a figurehead to me.
His job, and both of you are right. He works for the owners. That's his job, and I don't think he has to be apologetic for that being his job. Ultimately, the owners have the final say so. Meaning, Roger Goodell could want Colin Kaepernick back in the league all day. That could be his mission. But if an owner decides we're not going to sign him, bingo, we're not going to sign him. And again, we have to look at it because he works for the owners. And I don't bash him as much as you guys do. I think but I do agree, Marv. They knew they had to get out in front of this.
They knew they had to.
Because it was inevitably going to happen as you saw more of the players started to voice their opinion. So I agree with that.
Right. Yeah.
So Saints, going on to the Saints quarterback.
All right, this is the good stuff now. There we go.
Winston recently said, and this is funny to me. This is
all right. I'm gonna educate y'all today.
He thinks he's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play, and he feels that it's not over for him. And as a
James preach.
NFL, the brother said he's one of the best. I can't agree with that, but
why can't you agree with it?
I have not seen enough.
Okay.
And this is the deal. I don't dislike him. I'm not a fan, but I'm for seeing what he can do. I mean, it's funny to me because I think it's like we talked about this earlier. As athletes, and we're all athletes,
right?
We have an air about ourselves, and we walk into situations saying, I am going to be successful. I am worthy to be here. So I understand him from that perspective.
Right.
I just don't quite agree from what I've seen thus far in his career. But take it, Lee. You tell.
Go ahead, Mark.
Go, because we already know it. Lee gonna hit us with a whole bunch of stats.
I'm gonna hit you with the truth. That's what I'm gonna hit you with.
But here we go. Any team that is willing to let its franchise's all-time leading passer walk, that tells me all I need to know. And Lee, before you hit me with Steve Young and all the guys who were Tampa Bay quarterbacks, Steve Young he was there for 2 years. Okay, Steve was there maybe 2 years in Tampa Bay. Right. You gonna compare him to Brad Johnson? Because I think that was who he took over. And then you got Doug Williams. Come on, Doug wasn't the same in Tampa. Tampa was terrible when Doug was there.
He was their franchise quarterback, Mark.
Now, you can't hit me with these things because they don't really hold water. You got 33 touchdowns. You got 33 touchdowns.
Right.
For 30 interceptions.
Second in the league in touchdowns.
And 30 interceptions though. Don't gloss over that, Lee. 30 interceptions.
I'm gonna cover that too.
Basketball, my thing. So I'm gonna give you a little analogy here. That's like the James Harden reference, right? James Harden will go out and get you 45, but we're gonna give up 40 on the other end. So basically, so Jameson, he gonna throw you 7 touchdowns, but he gonna give you 5 picks to keep his team in the game. So I know where you're going with this because I know this is what you do. I get it, but come on, man, James sound crazy right now. Stop.
Okay, Mar, did you know before this season, and all the callers out there, and all the listeners, before this season, Jameis Winston had never thrown over 20 interceptions. Matter of fact, he had never thrown over 18 interceptions in any season before this year. Okay, I'm just putting it out there, right? That's one of my things.
What have you done for me lately, Lee?
Okay, hey, I'm with you there too. The next thing I'll say to that is his own coach said that after he went back and looked at the tape, this is Bruce Arians, he said that only about 20 of those interceptions was James. So I'm gonna throw that out there. Now, I'm just gonna but let me do this. I'm going to put on my glasses because I need my glasses for this. Hey, I'm going to put my glasses on. These are my Clark Kents, okay? Let me put these on. Let me tell you something. So first and foremost, he threw for 5,109 yards. Only 8 players, 8, Marv, in NFL history have thrown for that many yards. 8. That means he's at an all-time great level for yardage in a single season, okay? Now, second thing. He has the
interception.
Okay, I'm going to get to that. He has the second most passing yards through 5 years in NFL history. The only person that has threw for more passing yards than Jameis Winston in NFL history is Peyton Manning. Raquel, that one's for you. Okay? So that puts him at an all-time great level. I'm just proving why what he said wasn't totally ludicrous. Okay? At the age of 26, he's thrown more touchdowns in that 5-year period than Brett Favre, Kurt Warner, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees. All of them going to be in the Hall of Fame. But and within 5 years, at the age of 26, he's thrown more touchdowns than any of them. That's another thing. And then let me give you one last comparison, and then as the pastor would say, I'll close my sermon, okay? Through 5 years, right? Let me give you a comparison. I'm going to give you a quick comparison. Peyton Manning, his first 5 years, threw for 20,618 yards. Jameis Winston has thrown for 19,737 yards. Jameis Winston has thrown 121 touchdowns to 88 interceptions. Peyton Manning, within that same time frame, threw 138 touchdowns and 100 interceptions. So the same first 5 years, Peyton Manning threw 100. Jameis has thrown 88, but you crucified Jameis. Point to my thing. Jameis, his statement, whereas people look at it on the surface and say, oh, that's foolish. He has very distinct facts that are absolutely true and unrefutable. And I guarantee you one other thing. That's why the Saints have him. He'll start for the Saints for the next 10 years. I'll leave it alone. I'm a big Jameis Winston fan. Big Jameis Winston fan. Because young boy is extremely talented.
I hope you're right.
His mouth is talented.
Hey, the 30 interceptions, he's never done it before in his career. Hey, that tells you something, right? And the fact that he got LASIK surgery, which don't overstate that the man couldn't even see the score.
Now that's all he LASIK. He is an NFL All-American now. He got LASIK surgery.
Okay. We're gonna see. You'll see him come in for Breeze after Breeze get hurt. We'll see. I'm hoping Jameis be in Tampa as a quarterback. Well, he'll get to the NFC Championship game because the Cowboys going to the Super Bowl, but that's a different story.
You think Jameis is better than Teddy Bridgewater?
Yes. There is no doubt that Jameis is better than Teddy Bridgewater. Come on now.
All right.
That's it.
So let's have we're going to move on.
All right.
Top 5 running backs.
Oh, yes. The juicy stuff.
Running backs. And you know what, Marv, I think you or I should go first because I think Lee should close this one out because I know he's super excited. So
call in. I want to hear y'all's too after Raquel.
First, Marv.
All right, I'm going to go from 5 to 1. 5 for me, Gale Sayers.
Yes, that's a good pick.
He got, his career got short from a knee injury. So, but if you would have kind of pushed out what he probably could have done over a full career, he could have been maybe 1 or 2. I mean, it just depends. But Gale Sayers was great. 4 might be a little controversial for some, but Eric Dickerson.
Okay,
all right. What's that?
Who's your number 4?
Number 4 was Eric Dickerson.
Okay.
Number three for me, Big Barry Sanders. Gotta go with Barry, number 3. Okay. Number 2 for me is Come On Sweetness, Walter Payton. That's number 2 for me, all day, every day. And number 1 for me, indisputable, Jim Brown.
Wait a minute.
Jim Brown is number 1.
No, I'm not arguing about Jim Brown. I'm not arguing about Jim Brown. Marvin, wait a minute. Now, Marvin, oh my God. You know who you left off this list, don't you? Who's the all-time leading rusher in the NFL?
You gonna say Emmitt Smith? I mean,
who is the all-time leading rusher in the NFL?
Nah,
go ahead, Raquel. Go ahead. See, this is
so. I had to. Oh my God! Did he mute himself?
He needs to mute himself right now.
All right,
go ahead, Raquel.
I'll say this. I did a lot of research on this one. I did a lot of research, and mine is very much so stat based. And I went further back than you did, Marv, when I looked at the history of football and the history of running backs. And my number 5, I picked Marshall Faulk.
That's nothing wrong with that.
That's a good one. That's good.
His stat line was pretty good.
Marshall Faulk was a good runner.
My number 4 was O.J. Simpson. I was very impressed with O.J.'s stats: 6 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro teams, 4 rushing titles. Fairly impressed when we look at the young boys of today.
Can't argue with that.
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown, number 3. Okay.
Now, this is a deal. See, I kind of remember my dad and Jim Brown, right? So I got to that's when I started as a little girl, start really tuning in to football. And then my number two is Barry Sanders.
Okay.
From his stat line, he averaged 1,500 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns per season. And then my number 1 is Emmitt Smith.
There you go. Well, Raquel.
Get it out, man.
Raquel, I do think you know a little bit. I mean, I'll give it to you. Yeah.
Anybody could have ran behind that line he had for 10 years. I mean, you would have put Barry or Eric or any of them behind him, they might have got 20,000.
Come on, Mark. Stop it.
We can't take it away from Emmitt and what he did. I think he changed football for that position, in all honesty. I was looking at rushing yards, 18,350 average.
Hey, Lee. I'm sorry, Raquel. Go ahead.
164 rushing touchdowns, and then 3 Super Bowls. Almost, when you look at his complete stat line, he's hard to say he isn't number 1. But
thank you, Raquel.
But Lee, if you take Emmitt off that team, do you think Emmitt is the same? Because Emmitt was very limited athletically. He was not.
Mark. Emmitt was limited as far as his 40 time and just breakaway speed. But let me say this: you never saw Emmitt get caught from behind. Emmitt never was getting caught from behind. He just didn't have 4.3 speed like a Marshall Faulk would have, or some of these other backs. But you never saw him get caught. Emmitt was.
We know who your number 1 is. So go ahead.
See, the one thing about me, audience, is I call it like I see it. I don't just throw things. I'm not a homer for my teams. I don't do that. So number 5, Walter Payton. I think Walt Sweetness, great runner, great receiver out the backfield, physical runner. Sweetness was great. Number 4, the Juice, O.J. Simpson. The Juice, legit 2,000 yards, ran for over 275 yards in a single game. The Juice. Number 3, Barry Sanders. And a lot of people, they always they want to compare Barry and Emmitt. Look, you play with who you play for, right?
Right.
Detroit allowed Barry Sanders to get the ball and run 15 yards that way, run 30 back that way, come around the back of me, and then still run. So that was the way that they allowed him to run. But hey, he did what he did. He retired early. That's on him. Okay, he's number 3. Number 2, in my opinion, Emmitt Smith. I'm not the type of guy that's going to just say he's a Dallas Cowboy. He has to be number 1. In my book, Raquel, you said it. 18,000 yards, over 100 touchdowns, 3 Super Bowls, knocked all of the other people out. Walter, O.J., and Barry got more Super Bowls than all 3 of them put together. And number 1 is Jim Brown, the greatest of all time. 8 rushing titles, highest average per game average. Jim Brown just a month. See, Bob, I'm not a homer. I call it like I see it.
Jim had 9 Pro
Top 5 of all
Bowlers,
time.
9-time Pro Bowler, 8-time All-Pro.
Oh, yeah.
He did it in 9 seasons. So yeah,
Jim Brown, he's a bad man. Lamondre, I know we have a caller. Lamondre.
We do have a caller, but we also have a couple of comments on Facebook. One is from Sammy Campbell. He said, Lee, if I had Eric Williams, Tooney, Nate Newton, and Stanopti, hell, I would have gotten 29,000 yards too. And then it also said,
Sammy Campbell, that's just jealousy, okay? Look, you can only do it. Look, people think all Emmett did was run through wide open holes. Emmett ran over people. Hey, what about the game against the Giants when he played on one shoulder and carried the ball 35 times and got almost 200 yards? Give me a break. Emmett's the man.
All right, and then we also have a comment from Facebook from King Mook, who said nobody should leave Emmitt Smith off.
Hey, that's right, King Mook. You're a smart young man, and whoever your father is taught you well.
All right. So here we go. Caller, you are on the air with After the Buzzers.
Is this Vincent Lyons?
It is.
This is Vincent.
I believe I know what he's going to talk. I believe I know what he's going to talk about, but come on with it, Vincent. Come on with it. I believe I know what he's going to talk about.
You posed the challenge, and I'm here to respond, okay? and look, all of you had good lists, but now I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm not one of those that, I'm not going to put, a Paul Harning on this list, somebody that I never saw. So, I respect Jim Brown, but I never saw Jim Brown play. So my list is going to reflect the people that we saw play, okay?
Okay.
Number 5, I agree with Raquel. Marshall Faulk. Marshall is number 5. He not only did he do it from a rushing standpoint, but he was the one that really started the receiving, over 6,000 yards receiving, and that's why Christian McCaffrey is the highest paid running back right now, taking a cue from Marshall Faulk. Number 4, I put Eric Dickerson.
Okay.
ED's number 4 for me. Number 3, Lee, is Emmitt Smith.
Oh, give
Emmitt
me
is number 3.
What kind of crap? See, this is what I'm talking about.
Look, Lee, listen to me. Emmitt, great, absolutely. Number 3, he's a solid number 3.
Okay, I know where he's going with this.
Number 2 is Sweetness. Sweetness is number 2. Walter Payton is number 2, 16,726 yards, 13 seasons. Average 1,286 yards a year. A solid number 2. Number 1, I don't know how anyone could not have Barry Sanders at number 1.
Vincent, let me say something. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely 100% ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Listen at this, Lee. Let the numbers speak for themselves.
I let the numbers speak for themselves.
15,269 yards over 10 seasons. He averaged 1,500 yards a year.
Okay. And 10 touchdowns.
5 seasons less than Emmitt. Now, at an average of 1,500 yards a year, if you give him 5 more years, just on average, that's 22,900 yards.
Give him 5 more years. The guy didn't want to continue. He didn't have the heart to continue. He didn't have the heart to continue.
Look. It doesn't matter why he retired, Lee. You look at the numbers, look at the stats. Emmitt, I love Emmitt. Emmitt averaged 1,020. He averaged 1,223 yards a season. Barry 1,500 yards.
Who has more touchdowns, Vincent?
Look, Lee.
Who has more receiving yards, Vincent? Who has more Super Bowls, Vincent?
Look, Emmitt, I got him at a solid number 3. He's a solid number 3, and that's a great place for him. But Barry Sanders, if Barry Sanders had continued to play, Lee, if he had continued to play, he would have shattered that record so easily that I doubt if anyone would ever catch it.
I don't know about that because
that's even debatable.
Look. When Bobby Ross, hold on.
Happened in the time frame, but you have to take the stats from where they ended their career. It's not fair.
Raquel, I'm starting to like you more and more. That's what I'm saying.
We mute button for Lee. Put the mute on him.
And we don't read often, but it's unfair to say what somebody could have, should have, would have done. It's unfair.
Well, look at, and that's true, but look at look at what he had. 1,500 yards a season.
He averaged
1,500 yards average. That is incredible. That's over 300 yards more than anybody else.
That's fine.
1,500 yards a season.
But we don't give the greatest out for that. I mean, he never got to an NFC championship game. He doesn't catch the ball out the backfield with frequency. I mean,
football is a team sport, Lee. So you can't do it by yourself. Okay, you can't do it by yourself.
We constantly say this. We say this, and then I'm gonna shut up, Raquel, because I know and I get passionate about this stuff. We constantly say that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. But let me educate everybody out there. Tom Brady has won the most Super Bowls. That's why we give him that distinction. But Tom Brady's numbers do not rank him. Drew Brees' numbers totally eclipse Tom Brady's numbers. But we never say Drew Brees is the GOAT. We always say Tom Brady's the GOAT, and I'm not going to let people say Emmett's not the I'll give it to Jim Brown, actually. But if you look at Tom Brady and you look at Drew Brees and Peyton Manning, their numbers far outweigh Tom Brady's. But he's got those 6 Super Bowl rings, and that's why we say he's the GOAT.
Winning is important, and I think, in any sport, you have to win. You have to win. Winning is important. And
I appreciate you. Well, I knew you were going to bring it, Vincent. I knew you was going to bring it.
All right. Okay. All right.
Appreciate it, brother.
And we do have a couple of comments. We do have a couple of comments. We do have a couple of comments from Facebook.
Andre, we got another caller?
Nope, not another caller, but we got a couple of comments from Facebook. First of all, Sammy agrees with Vincent, and he says, Barry Sanders had no line on top of that, Lee Jones, so he directed that totally towards you. And then Courtney Nicole said, there is no I in team, Lee.
Look, both of y'all get off of my back.
So I think we've already talked about all those questions in detail with Vincent. We're going to wrap up the show with the last question, and it's women basketball. And I know a lot of you guys can't talk favorably or intelligently about this, but these two guys I know can. But top 5 women, and we can go.
We're gonna let you go last, Raquel. We're gonna let you go last, Raquel.
Yeah, you go last, Raquel. You go last, Raquel. You close the show out.
I'm gonna go ahead and wrap mine up real quick. Number 5 for me, Tamika Catchings. I love Tamika. Yeah, number 5 is Tamika Catchings.
Oh, number 5. Okay.
Number 5. Number 4 for me is Lisa Leslie. That's number 4 for me. Number 3, Cynthia Cooper. You got to give Coop some love. Oh, come on, man. Cynthia Cooper's a bad girl. Bad. Number 2, Cheryl Miller. I mean, you can't have a list without Cheryl on there. And number 1, who can get buckets on anybody, men, child, women, I don't care who it is, Diana Taurasi.
Diana Taurasi is bad. Diana Taurasi is bad.
That's a bad girl. That's a bad girl.
She's a bad girl. She can hoop. She ain't in my top 5, but she can hoop. I'll go quick. Number 5, Candace Parker. Parker. Double machine. Number 4, Cheryl Swoops. Cheryl Swoops. The female version of Michael Jordan. Cheryl Swoops. Number 3, Lisa Leslie.
Yes.
Number 3, Lisa Leslie. Okay. I mean, just dominated the game. Big center, could do it all. Olympic gold medalist, whatever. Number 2, Cynthia Cooper. Cynthia Cooper didn't go to the WNBA until she was almost 34 years old.
Yeah, she was older.
They won 4 straight titles. She averaged 22 points a game each year and led the WNBA in scoring. Cynthia Cooper was a bad.
We got to give a shout out to Tina Thompson too, who was part of that squad. She's the head coach at University of Virginia now. My boy is her assistant, so I had to give a shout out.
And then my number 1 Marv is Cheryl Miller. Cheryl Miller can do everything. She can do everything on the court. And you talking about playing with guys? Cheryl Miller bust you up. So that's my number 1.
Can't be mad at that one.
Rossi is bad though. I got to give her credit.
Bad girl.
All right, Raquel, close us out.
That it's funny, y'all.
Close us out, Raquel.
Tamika, number 5 for me is Tamika Catchings. I think her work speaks for herself. I think she'll be in the top 5 conversation forever, in all honesty.
Yeah.
She's contributed so much to the game on so many levels. She's my number 5. My number 4 is Diana. Diana, to me, was one of the best college players to ever touch a ball. WNBA, not as impactful as she was in college. That's why she's my number 4. She did not go to the WNBA and dominate as she did in college. Candace Parker is my number 3. She changed basketball for women. I think when Candace came on the court, you had a 6'2", 6'3" female that could jam the ball, shoot the ball, dribble the ball.
First person to dunk in a game.
First girl to do it in a game and do it with multiple times. She's a hard 3 for me, and she was almost my number 2. My number 2 is A'ja Wilson. A'ja is very young. At her age, she has done more than anybody in the game of basketball. From college, as a freshman in college, she came off the bench and led her team. Sophomore year, she was the woman. Every record you can think of, any record you can think of, broken at the University of South Carolina. And if you guys know who Shannon Johnson is, Shannon Johnson also played at the University of South Carolina. She's from Hartsville, South Carolina. She used to be one of the best. She was the best player to ever put on a uniform for the Lady Gamecocks. And A'ja Wilson came and shattered all her shit in almost 2 seasons. And when Shannon played, they were horrible. I mean, they were horrible. The Gamecocks were horrible, and she was out there by herself, essentially. Mm-hmm. So A'ja Wilson is my number 2. She went into the WNBA, pretty much won every title as a rookie. She's scary. I don't know where she'll end up because she's so early in her career, but if you look at A'ja's career compared to anybody else in the first 2 seasons, she's by far the best woman to ever play ball. My number 1 is Cynthia Cooper. Cynthia Cooper is actually Mrs. MJ. She is Mrs. Michael Jordan. She holds that title. It's almost embarrassing because Cynthia and Cheryl won. Tina Thompson, Cynthia, Cheryl Swoops won those 4 championships together. And Cynthia Cooper, by far, better athlete, better baller than Cheryl. And I love Cheryl.
Do you know that they were at USC at the same time, Raquel?
Yep.
You didn't even hear Cynthia Cooper's name.
Well, this is the deal. Cynthia, you may not, but when Cynthia Cooper came into the WNBA, she was 33, as you stated. Cynthia Cooper led the league in scoring for 4 years in a row. Cynthia Cooper was the MVP of the finals 4 years in a row. Right. Cynthia Cooper led scoring in the finals 4 years in a row, and Cynthia Cooper won 4 championships in a row. No other woman has done it.
Who is the greatest? Who is the greatest women's player to ever play in the Olympics, Marv?
Cheryl Swoops may be the best in the Olympics.
That's Cheryl Miller. That's Cheryl Miller.
Yeah, Cheryl. I probably would have to go with Cheryl Olympic wise.
So, and she couldn't play. I mean, she's too old at that point by the time the WNBA
she was too old.
Cheryl Miller, the baddest woman I've ever seen play basketball, man.
Cheryl Miller is so much before my time. It's hard for me to give. There's not enough footage either, right? I would have liked to be able to go back and watch all the games to see the footwork, and I couldn't see her. I didn't see it. And when I look, and this is one of the things I love about Cynthia and A'ja. I'll never forget. I went to a USC game. A'ja came off the bench. It was her freshman year. She got the rebound. She dribbled the length of the court. She missed the layup. And I thought, my God, she looked like a guard. But I was like, 2 possessions later, they give her the ball in the post. And my eyes automatically went to her feet. And I said, she's going to be the best player in women's basketball. Her footwork was immaculate. I've never seen an 18-year-old that size. She's huge. I've never seen an 18-year-old with that type of footwork. Male or
don't forget, old girl from Connecticut came and gave it that work though. Brianna. Don't forget.
Brianna Stewart, Marv.
But the girl at Connecticut isn't better. The girl at Connecticut had a better team, and questionably a better coach during that time. But anyhow, I think Asia could be. Lord,
no, I agree.
She got time. Time is on her side.
Cynthia Cooper, by far, no woman has done what Cynthia Cooper has done in for women's basketball.
For the WNBA,
Miller didn't do what Cynthia did, and I get that she was great in her time, but not even Cheryl Miller did what Cynthia did. She is by far the best.
Well, Cheryl Miller did it on a global stage. Cheryl Miller was the greatest. And she is. I mean, she did it on a global stage, on the Olympic stage. I mean, Cheryl Miller, Mars 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'4".
Yeah,
could handle the rock, could rebound, could take it could do everything that guys could do. And again, we're talking about the time frame that she played, but those that saw Cheryl Miller know. I mean,
there was nobody during this time of Cheryl Miller. You probably can't name one other player. I would challenge you to name 3 other players during that era.
The McGee twins were excellent. I mean, there were plenty of players. There were players overseas. You have to realize women's basketball in the Olympics was far better than men's basketball from a competitive perspective. Cheryl Miller, Raquel, if you get the chance and you go back and see some old footage of shit, you'll see just bad. Won 2 national titles, and like I said. The comparison is Cynthia Cooper was there at USC when Cheryl Miller played. Nobody knew Cynthia Cooper.
Nobody
what
knew.
year are they? Like, what are you talking about? Is one a freshman, one is a senior? What year? Did they graduate the same time?
They're not that far apart. They're not that far. I think Cheryl may have been a couple of years ahead of her, maybe even just one. They're very close to the same age. It's just Cheryl took a different route. She didn't play. But remember, Cynthia Cooper didn't go to the WNBA till she was 34 years old. Yeah. Cheryl had already done this. She had knee problems because she was so big. But yes, Cheryl was a tremendous player.
I'm going to look her up. I mean, I think it's hard for me to, my God, like I don't even think women's basketball it just wasn't what it is now either. Those girls weren't nearly as athletic as the girls are now. I'll be interested to see raw footage of Cheryl.
Absolutely.
Miller.
Yeah, actually, we have a comment from Facebook from Courtney Nicole saying Reggie Miller said that he could never beat Cheryl. Too bad we don't have footage of Cheryl. And then
Cheryl was bad.
And then Sammy Campbell also wrote on those early to mid '80s women Georgia basketball teams. And then, that's it.
So Cheryl Miller is 6'2". She's 6'2". She's not 6'4". She is 6'2".
Okay.
I'm trying to see who was on her team and how far apart they were. It's just not enough footage for me to say. I see stats, but
you see stats. You see Olympic gold medals. You see 2 national titles. You see 2 player of the years in college. You see all of that. That's who she was.
We have players that have done that. So if you look at Candace Parker alone, Lisa, if you look at Candace Parker, she will show those same winning stats.
If you ask those
gold medal,
if you ask the Candace Parkers and the Lisa Leslies who the greatest woman's player is, they would say Cheryl Miller.
And they pattern their games after her.
Yeah, they'll say Cheryl Miller. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So
good stuff.
She's a freshman and she's a senior. So you probably shouldn't have heard Cynthia Cooper during Cheryl's time at USC because
you didn't. But Raquel, the last thing I'll say, you didn't hear anything of her after Cheryl left either. See that's what I'm saying. At USC, Cynthia Cooper was non-existent. She went overseas and played, and then she came back. That's when she got all. You did what she did, but you know she the legend of Cheryl Miller.
So do you take away all of her achievements because you didn't hear her name for a period?
No, I don't take away any of her achievements as far as the WNBA, but I just think in the early years of the WNBA. Now I know we got to close. Now there were only 8 teams, right?
Yeah.
And it was a very watered down league. That's one of the reasons Houston won those championships, because they had Tina Thompson and Cheryl Swoops and Cynthia Cooper. Could nobody mess with that team. But I don't take anything away from Cynthia Cooper. She's a phenomenal player. She was my number 2, but from a
definitely better than Cheryl Swoops, and I like Cheryl. Cheryl's probably my number 6, Marv.
Swoop can hoop.
Okay.
She's probably my number 6.
Hey, people.
I'm not mad at that though.
11 o'clock Saturday morning. Hit us up.
Yes, we'll be back 11 o'clock Saturday morning. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We are After the Buzzers. I'm Raquel Richardson Thomas, Mr. Basketball Marvin Orange, Lee Jones, our Stephen A. Smith.
No.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We will see you soon. Make sure you share the footage with someone, tell a friend. Join us Saturday morning at 11 a.m. We'll be back with a brand new show. Thank you guys so much. You've been watching After the Buzzers.
Thanks for all the callers. We appreciate you.